Hello and welcome to 24 Panels Per Second. This is the film and TV podcast for the Comic Crush, comic book film and TV podcast, I should say. Today we're going to be talking about Thor, Love and Thunder, which both Liz and I saw this last couple of days. I'm just going to bring Liz on. Hello. Elizabeth, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, yep, doing swell.
Pleased as punch that you got to see a new Marvel movie.
Yeah. I mean, I've been counting down the days since 2017 for another Thor movie.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that Thor's one of your favorite characters. In the fine tradition of technical problems that always plague this show and indeed my life, I'm just going to put you onto Liz for the moment because I need to close my living room window that I've forgotten to close because it's really freaking hot in the UK at the moment. Just 1 second.
Okay, well, I'll just...
You could do it, Liz. Do a show, right? It's fine. It's fine. This is the dream.
About time, I know.
This is what the audience wants.
All right, so me talking about Thor.
Oh, hi.
Okay, fine. I guess him too.
No. Well, there you go. I'm fully recovered from COVID, by the way. Thanks for asking, Liz. It's cool. Thanks for asking. I'm glad you were so concerned. And I'm sure our audience is on a knife edge, wondering, whether or not I'd pull through on that one. So, here we are. Thor not Dark World. What's it called? Thor Love and Thunder.
Yeah, I think you're about 8 years, 6 months, and 3 days too late for that one.
A buddy was asking me today about she was saying, "Oh, can you message me when you've seen it and just let me know?" Because she doesn't really watch the Marvel movies because she doesn't like adaptations, and I'm just like, but I never really see them as adaptations.
They're not really. I mean, like they take it's a sort of loosely based on the source material, which this movie absolutely is. Loosely based on the Jason Aaron run, which I am a huge fan of, and was really excited to see that they were loosely adapting.
Yeah.
For this film.
She was asking me, is it better than Thor 2? To which I gave her a response. I won't spoil. Because
I love really Thor 2. I mean, a lot of people really hate Thor 2, but there's not a Thor movie that I don't love.
This is true. Liz, is there a Marvel movie you don't love though? Really, when we get
yes, actually.
Oh yeah, actually, there is. There's a couple.
Yeah. Well, no, there's it's actually just the Eternals.
Well, funny enough, and yet that movie is very much kind of referenced in this, I felt, but we'll get to that. So obviously you've watched Thor 1, 2, 3. I would say Love and Thunder had probably been your favorite, I think.
What?
Not Love and Thunder.
Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I adore Ragnarok. I mean, I think Ragnarok is just like so special in terms of the Thor films. I really love the first Thor movie. I've watched a billion times.
Okay.
I actually love that movie so much. But I mean, Ragnarok totally sort of changed the game in terms of not just like Thor films, but like even tonally, like sort of the MCU Thor just in general.
I think it also took the kind of baton from Guardians.
Yeah.
Because it was pre-Guardians. It was post-Guardians 2, am I right? I'm trying to remember how they fit in.
Yeah.
I think it very much picked up the baton from those two films.
Right.
And really ran with it.
Right.
Just in terms of getting a director who was kind of more into sort of slightly crazier indie fare or comedic indie fare.
Right. And actually like knew what to do with Chris Hemsworth, and recognized that actually inherently Thor is a really funny character. Chris Hemsworth is a really funny actor.
And I think that stuff is kind of front and center here, but I have mixed feelings, which you'll discover as you go. So yeah, I mean, Ragnarok, I agree, was the best of the Thor movies and one of the better MCU movies. It's the one that I haven't had a chance to revisit as much. Like I'm not sure I've watched Ragnarok again since we saw it.
Really?
Yeah, not on purpose. Like I think I think I may have, but I certainly haven't seen it in a while, and I'm not quite there yet. My sort of Marvel rewatch has stalled while I watch old episodes of NYPD Blue, because watching that 30-year-old TV show is a lot more important to me. So and of course Miss Marvel, which we're doing a podcast on also right now. So I haven't rewatched Ragnarok yet in a while. Do you find that's one, like you said, you'd watch the original Thor?
Funnily enough, I've watched the original Thor like many more times than I've watched Ragnarok.
Okay.
And part of that actually comes down to how funny Ragnarok is. With comedies, I kind of like to space out how often I rewatch them so that I get the same laughs out of them. Because I don't like to remember every joke to the point where I don't laugh at it anymore.
It's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like, comedies, I like to space out, sort of like just, it's more of like a treat every once in a while, where the first Thor movie, I just can watch over and over. I just find it really rewatchable. Weirdly, like, the same can be said for like kind of most of the phase 1 movies. I've sort of like battered those films in terms of how many times I've seen them.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I have. I don't think I have. I think for me, it's phase 2 and 3 that are the kind of fun bits. I mean, Winter Soldier, I've seen, 10, 12 times. Like I've watched that.
Yeah, that's like I can watch that over and over too. Actually,
even though the big reveal is done and dusted for me. You can only have that experience once. I find that it's still, really rewatchable, and Civil War has kind of grown more rewatchable as I've gone on, or as it's gone on, got older, or I've gotten older, one or the other, I don't know. I'm trying to think which of the others I find really incredibly rewatchable. Iron Man 3, I think. So I tend to either, like, the ones I like have either got to be very dark and quite big in terms of what they're doing away from the standard MCU, or they've got to be very light in tone.
So what did you think of this one in terms of tone?
Well, do you want to get the good news of whether or not you liked it out?
Sure, well, why don't we just get into it? I mean, I think you've made it clear that you have some issues with it, which I
do have some issues with it, Liz. I do have some issues.
That's
with it.
fine. So why don't we?
First of all, I love the idea that Korg is now your orator, your narrator for the thing, because I remember how much I was really rooting for, even though it would have been tonally completely wrong, a pre-Endgame recap that was entirely done by Luis from Ant-Man. I would have killed for that.
Still, I would love to see that. But.
I think actually, right before the end of phase 4, they should probably get him on just to do one for the entire MCU, because that would be like the gold standard for me. So I really like the fact you got Korg, doing that in his typical kind of bumbling manner, yet well-meaning manner. I mean, look. So all the stuff that you had in Ragnarok, the comedy, the pitch and tone, I feel are kind of amped up here, to the point where there isn't one scene or moment that doesn't have a laugh.
Well, I would counter that the opening scene with
apart from that, like,
yeah.
So obviously we open with the death of Gore the God Butcher, but it's impossible to get invested in that scene.
I disagree, but go on.
Okay. Can you tell me why you felt invested in that moment?
Oh, I mean, maybe it comes down to like Christian Bale and his abilities as an actor. I was like, I found it really sad. It like, really did. Like, I felt the feelings I think I was meant to feel. I was like, oh, this is horrible. I really empathize. This is so sad. And
as we've discussed before, I lack empathy. I can do sympathy, but empathy's not really me. But I found it impossible to get invested in that because there was no context for who this guy was.
I think you quickly figure that out. Like, when you moments after the child's death, he finally kind of stumbles across one of the gods, and you find out that he's a devout sort of.
Yeah, no. I mean, within that, but I just felt that, and this was a problem I felt with a lot of the film. Is that it was free of context, almost like it was just kind of things happen. These things happen. That happens. That happens. Then that happens. Then that happens. And that happens. But I felt that those things all felt kind of divorced from an overriding arc or contextual kind of bookending, and I think my problem is that things happen way too quickly, and you got into it way too fast, and I think a lot of scenes kind of went on just a bit too long and kind of lay flat. I mean, the stuff we thought was great and was fun in the opening with the Guardians.
Okay.
However, they were just there.
I mean, are we? I think we're going too big picture right now.
Okay, yeah, go for it. You talk to me about how you feel about it, please.
Well, no, I just thought we were going to be talking about the beginning, for a beat longer.
Oh, sorry. No. Well, do that. I'm not. Okay. I'm not trying to.
Right. I mean,
jump on your desire to do that at all.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to talk about gore for a minute.
Please, go on.
Right. Okay. I really liked that scene. To the point where I actually felt that he became almost too empathetic to a slight degree, because right away it's like some of this it's based on the character from the comics. In the comics, it's like his whole family dies. The sort of, instead of a daughter, it's he has one son left who is dying, and he tries to appeal to the gods, and they let him down. But I felt like this was like a really great introduction, tells you everything you need to know about him right away, in with a lot of brevity, and as I said, a lot of this comes down to Christian Bale and his abilities as an actor, that I got who he was
right
in those couple of minutes, and understood his motivation throughout the rest of the film, to the point where it's like, well, yeah, I kind of get that he's sort of right. Which again is like a thing of the Jason Aaron run. There's like a whole arc in which Thor becomes unworthy, it's like after Nick Fury has whispered to him something that you only find out at the end, which was, spoilers, Gore was right. The gods, really, should maybe be taken down. They maybe should, acknowledge that they, it's, so I thought that was like a very effective way to introduce this character, who, for my money, was like quite a good villain throughout the rest of the film. Like, I mean, I love Christian Bale. I think, he will always make the most out of like any role. So I did feel invested in that scene. And then when you get this payoff at the end of the movie, I was really moved by that.
Okay. So, but the problem I had is that I feel like, yes, brevity is of utmost importance in movies. Speed is very important in films and screenplays and things like that, and how you get from this to this to this to this. And I just felt that was one, like, the opening is where you could maybe take your time a little bit more. And I felt an extra few minutes wouldn't have killed them, and a bit of context as to, like, maybe it would have been better, although more, a lot more bleak, to see his family die one by one as they go. In
I think the daughter was enough to represent that.
Yeah, but I just. And again, like, obviously, it's moving watching a child die. Like, don't get me wrong. But I just felt that, and this was just endemic in the entire film, just more breathing room. And instead, I felt what I was watching was this kind of almost, when he meets his god, meets his maker, he, because of the entirely different pitch and tone of their performances, what you were watching was this kind of Korg narrated segment of, and this is how Gore came along, and I was just like, okay, it just feels a bit light. And I like the idea of this weapon that can kill gods, and how it corrupts, the way ultimately all power must corrupt. I really like that. I like, there were little things I liked. Like, I liked just the oddity of the disciples made entirely out of this god's mind and flowers, who were just there, and then the other sort of weird masked disciples who just kind of duck down out of camera when he's killed and stuff. Like, I liked, there were lots of little touches where you're kind of going, oh, that's interesting, that's interesting, that's interesting. But, and there are some things that we will get into about Christian Bale's performance, which I thought was a good performance, but we'll get into them, I'm sure. But moving on to like the stuff with the Guardians, which it just blipped by. And
I felt, I was happy to see him. There were a lot of I got a lot of good laughs out of those interactions, and also it kind of the conversation between Thor and Quill, kind of right before they part ways, resonates throughout the rest of the film, and that's really like the primary theme of the film.
Sure.
So but I did blip by. I agree. It seemed like this, this is where we left off with Thor at the end of it. Avengers Endgame, we know he went off to have adventures with the Guardians. We basically see this last adventure, and I think it's like Taika Waititi, to tell the story he wanted to tell. It was like, okay, we'll wrap that up, and off we go into the film he wanted to create.
I guess that the danger is then it becomes a bit like Civil War, where Civil War was an ersatz Avengers movie. This becomes an ersatz kind of Guardians movie.
Exactly.
However, my problem with it was that, one, I felt the stuff, I didn't believe the stuff that Quill was saying, largely because it was Quill saying it, and I just didn't buy it from Peter Quill. So I don't buy this. And there was a sense in that they're just trying to get rid of him and get him off the ship. It's good, like they've just had enough.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's absolutely what it was, which was hilarious, because he's trying to make it like every moment last, and they're all like, bye, out of here. Are we going? And he's like, I know it'll be hard. You're going to miss me.
But I liked that. But again, I just feel they could have done more with it. And the film felt a bit, in those scenes, I just kept waiting for it to settle down. And it's just like, I just want you to fucking settle down into the story and calm down a bit and breathe and tell me, give me a constructed film. And I never felt you got that. And it was right from that opening scene. It's just like, you're not going to calm down. You're not going to like, you know, like just fucking do whatever you need to do, smoke a bowl, can sit down, think, and just calm down a bit. But I never got that throughout the film. And that scene was endearing. I like the screaming goats, despite the fact that sound was as annoying as you'd want it to be.
I liked the Guardian scenes. I liked the big battle where Thor, I loved Thor meditating up on the hill and then riding Stormbreaker away like a witch's broom. Like that had me howling.
Yeah. I do have an issue with that, and I'll explain why, hopefully, as we get into it, if I remember. I quite often go, I'll explain this later, and then I forget to go where I want to go. Go on. It's because I get so enraptured by what you're saying, Liz.
Right. Well, of course. And then Thor just, going onto the battlefield, all the Guardians are like, they're, obviously in the trenches, it's really rough for them fighting this battle. And then Thor just shows up and, decimates the entire opposing forces in short order all by himself.
Sorry, go on.
And that I love that scene. He's fighting these like these creatures that look like Animal from the Muppets, who are like all on these like speeder bikes, and like he's just exploding them one by one, and like then he gets in between two of the bikes with his legs, and it was such a fun sequence. I was just laughing. And
I think in a way the film kind of was about the preposterous ponciness of self-importance and right down to the whole, well, I'm just going to go and meditate until someone says they need me, and it's just like, oh, come on,
right? And that's that. Well, no, I mean that's exactly. I mean that's is that not what God's?
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, there's all these. I think there's a lot of interesting thematic stuff going on in it.
I'm completely with it on that. And also destroying, one of the important thing is, that he destroys the temple that he's supposed to be saving. But that is, one of the things about religion that's kind of interesting is you actually don't need churches or religious space. And respectfully, you do not need religious spaces. And I believe in having some kind of spirituality if you want that and you need that in your life and you need God or whatever you want to call it. I'm totally there with that. But I think a lot of the things, as beautiful as they are, and I actually quite like being in churches because of my upbringing, I spent a lot of time in church when I was younger. As much as I like it, you don't need those spaces to be able to worship. There was an interesting point that I think they could have hit, which was actually, believing in deities isn't wrong, but deification is, or maybe is, and maybe that's the problem. And and I'm sure in a way they were reaching for that, but it's almost like too busy, got to make with the funny. So come on, we're not dwelling on any of these points. We're just
I think they're there though to if you.
Yeah, I mean they're there in the way that I don't know.
Well,
it's like I think it's like putting out a bunch of biscuits for people, but not wanting them to really eat them. If you got guests round or something, I'm just going to put out some sandwiches for you. I didn't actually expect you to eat them, though, don't worry. The speed at which it's done, and Marvel movies do have a problem in that they're as most movies do nowadays, they're overlong. And one of the things I loved about Doctor Strange is that it was like 2 hours and 6 minutes. I don't know what the running time was on this. Do you happen to recall?
Off the top of my head, no. I don't think it was much more than 2 hours.
It certainly bloody didn't feel like it. But I actually feel this is one where they could have taken just a little bit more time. But yeah, so I mean, Thor and Call go off on their own little side quest, or to try and find the God Butcher. And again, like it's the exposition of it was super fast. And I think I had a problem with that. It's like it didn't feel like organic exposition. It's just, we'll just whiz through this freaking hollow screen over here. Oh, and there's Sif, and bang, we're on to the next thing.
I mean, I was really happy to see Sif again. I would have liked to see her more, but
don't get me wrong. I'm not unhappy to see the characters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not distressed or upset to see the characters.
Well, I mean, I felt like that was a perfectly good way to move the scene on and, into the next leg of the film and also, reintroduce Sif. I'm glad to see her. Curious about the arm. Again, I would have liked to see more of Jamie Alexander, but
and she's actually
the fact that she's not, she hasn't been killed off. And one of my favorite sequences in the movie is actually, when Korg goes through all of the losses that Thor, went through to lead him to sort of harden his heart and close himself off. It was hilarious. Like, it's the way they laid that out. Oh yeah, first his mom, then his dad, then this guy, and this other guy. Yeah. Who's this guy? and then his brother. And his brother
again.
And then his brother again.
That was great. That stuff was great. And I don't. Yeah, again, I can't. And I like this idea of bringing Korg back as this sort of, Greek chorus to kind of remind people where they are, and he keeps retelling the myth of Thor, and in a way,
very much like is like the way the old Viking stories were. Like in a cave, he's got all the kids around, and he's telling the story of Thor, and like in the Jason Aaron run, I recall specifically them kind of referencing that as like the birth of the gods and the way the gods are kept alive on Earth. Yeah. Like it's through storytelling and essentially, that's what Korg is doing throughout the film. And I thought that was clever.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, getting on to like Jane Foster and the sort of cancer plot, which is, really sad and things like that. And, like, I felt that scene with her and Darcy kind of went on, like, it's just like, man, you need to move on from this, but the style of it just felt really flat to me. And it's just like, look, this is a big freaking emotional moment when you're revealing that this character who's been missing from the movies for a long time for various reasons is, now back, but unfortunately, has this kind of this fatal disease. And like that, I just felt myself getting frustrated with the way everything was done, and that kind of that it really started to gnaw on me at that point. It's just like, all right, we're sort of 20 minutes, half hour in, and you're just speeding through plot points, setting up where everyone is, and I just like that. I kind of got a bit frustrated, although it was, it is sad and it is moving to see that character going through that. And I think Natalie Portman's a terrific actor, and seeing her in the movie again was a real kind of, it was like, yeah, I'm like, this is great, get her back. And especially because we know from all the pre-publicity where it's going.
Right. It was nice to see Darcy again, even if it was just briefly. It was really nice to see Selvig again, even if it was just briefly.
And again, the movie missed, I think, it was missing that sort of superhuman element of those guys.
Which I don't think like is something that Taika Waititi likes to dwell on, is like, the Earth stuff as much.
Yeah.
He obviously was quite content to just like phase it out entirely in Ragnarok. And he clearly kind of makes a choice here not to linger with Jane's like sort of storyline on Earth with her friends for very long. For better or worse, he moves on from it pretty quickly and focuses on the stuff he clearly does like to, sort of dwell in, which is like the kind of more bombastic space stuff. and the sort of the Asgardian sort of aspect of it as well. Just like great scenes in New Asgard. I actually really loved seeing the players again, the Asgardian players, which I was not expecting. I was not expecting to see Matt Damon and Sam Neill and Luke Hemsworth, sort of reenacting the hammer scene from which, I mean, that was such a treat.
And Melissa McCarthy
Melissa McCarthy, I know, everybody sort of my screening sort of laughed a ton when she popped out. But I thought that was another, again, like a really clever little way to remind the audience what happened with Mjolnir in Ragnarok, and set up a couple of things actually pretty cleverly in that scene. There's you see what had happened with Mjolnir. You also see in a very theatery way what happens with Odin when he transfigures into the into the golden dust, which is foreshadowing for the end of the film. So I got a big kick out of that. We hear the hammer start calling to Jane. Which doesn't,
which again, I feel just kind of blipped by as quick as possible. She opens a book. There it is. She goes, "Oh, I'll go and get that." She goes to get that.
Well, no, it kind of calls out to her when she
does it? I didn't really get
that. Okay,
I didn't really necessarily get that hammer was calling out to her, and that therefore that had no weight for me when she appeared and just it all starts vibrating and moving, because again, no context. They wanted to give you the context later, because it's almost like gotta move on.
Well, did you need the context right at that moment? I mean, I think it was fine to leave it kind of mysterious until later on we find out exactly. I thought we find that out in kind of a moving way. Like, why did the hammer choose her? And we find out there's a reason that See, I think you're just like a grouch about this movie. You don't have anything nice to say about it.
I do and I don't. I do and I don't. There's a lot of things I agree with you on in terms of, this was funny and this was amusing. This was fun. Sorry, I don't want to kind of wrap it up until it's time to wrap it up. So I'm having to hold back a bit. I'm sorry. Because that hopefully will give you some context as to why I'm sort of not as enthused as you, beyond the fact that you're you and I'm me, and
I really didn't think it was necessary at that point to know why the hammer had chosen Jane. I didn't. I thought it was okay, well, why is the hammer choosing Jane? If you hadn't read the Jason Aaron stuff, which it's I think or if you had, it's okay, well, they're the way they do it in the film is a little bit different.
Yeah.
I just think for the audience, it's okay to be as flummoxed as Thor as to why she shows up in the armor swinging Mjolnir in the scene. I think it actually adds a little bit of drama to it,
I mean, I think there's a balance to be struck there, and I think it was largely about when you place those flashbacks. And you get this sort of quite sinister scene where the children are all taken, and also you nearly get the scene, and I was almost rooting for this to happen, where Gore kills Thor quite early on in the movie, and there was part of me that was going, no, go on, do it, do it, and just watch what happens afterwards. And I mean, I knew they weren't going to do it, and yes, I am glad they didn't, but there is a part of me, and I think it's the writer part of me, that kind of I remember reading an interview of a screenwriter once who was like, I reached this scene, and there were these characters, and one of them had a gun, and blah blah blah, and I was just stuck. And then I kind of just went, oh, what if the gun went off? And so the gun went off, and it's just like, yeah, actually, the gun needed to go off in this scene, and it might have been. You might have taken it to a different place. It would have been a different film, admittedly. And wouldn't have been, well, it would have been Thor, but not that Thor. And there was part of me that kind of went, no, go on, fucking do it. Don't do it to one of the minor sort of B characters. Do it to the lead, and just watch what happens, and then just let it kind of, and give it some weight. Come on, give me some real freaking weight here. And it's like, no, that's not going to happen. But I like the idea that they started to go there, Yeah, and
I thought that was a really fun scene. I thought that Gore, you get to kind of see him be really sinister. You get to see the full Gore, sort of since that opening in the beginning of the film, and you see how corrupted he's become by the Necrosword. To the point where he kidnaps all the children of the town, and obviously we know from the brief little origin we got of him that he had his own daughter. Why is he targeting children?
Yeah.
So we get the sort of juxtaposition of like, okay, Gore's here, he's really sinister, he's got all his shadow creatures, like they're really creepy, they're attacking Asgard, and then you get the first sort of interplay between Jane Thor and Thor, and like the first thing that happens is like he senses that Mjolnir is there, and he's which I was like dying of laughter as he's like he's just completely distracted by this, and he's like here boy, like come to Thor.
And I did think that was a nice metaphor for what comes later, where it's like they both bury themselves in work, and that's the thing he's really concerned about, because the hammer is the ego. You know what I mean? It's that's the identity. That's what the fucking identity's wrapped up in.
Yeah,
is that object, and so that I thought was nice stuff, and
then when he finally sees Jane and realizes that it's Jane, he's absolutely flabbergasted, and their interaction is it's actually really kind of sweet and funny. Like I do actually think they have quite good chemistry. Like I didn't really think so, like per se in the first maybe the first like Thor film I was a little on the fence about it, but I actually have really warmed to them, like as sort of a romantic pairing. I think that it was just very it was a lot of fun for me to see them on screen in those roles again.
And I kind of like this idea that Valkyrie is now she is struggling with being
king of New Asgard.
And because she's still a person that wants to die, which is kind of, and I think there's a lot of that throughout the film, which is everyone seeking a glorious death, but none of them really want glorious lives, which I think is something in the movie, and there is something in that with Gore as well, where it's just like, well, you could choose life, you could choose love, you could choose this other way. But you don't. You've chosen like the harshest interpretation of it, the most negative kind of thing you can go for.
Which is something that I think can be said about religion. If you want to look at that as sort of an aspect, it's like there are people who want to interpret their religion in the darkest possible way, when you could choose the loving way to interpret it.
And also, like, the thing with religion that always kind of annoys me is that, look, really, when you get down to it, it should never be a doctrine about following gods or following a god or following this. I actually think what it is a set of teaching tools around morals, and that's what it is. And
to my mind,
yeah. And I think there needs to be more of that and less of, less of this punishment angle. Although for dramatic purposes, one does like a vengeful god. And I think there's a certain thrill for Valkyrie getting to kind of head off into an adventure where she might die. And when the children are taken, in a way, there is something about it that kind of makes her go, actually, I get to go off and
have my warrior's death. Yeah.
Which, and
right. I mean, and that's a sort of thing that recurs in the film, because right from the beginning when we see Sif, she's like, oh no, let me die in glorious battle on the battlefield. And he's like, oh well, no, you're alive, so you're not going to go to Valhalla, which is something, again, bit of foreshadowing.
And it's interesting that the film does that with all the women. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost willing to sacrifice the women in the film, or at least tease this kind of thing where we could actually just get rid of all the women, and actually, that's not the case, because the only people that die in the film, to my recollection, outside of a character at the end, the only people that die in the film are women. Like, the little girl dies at the beginning, or the only people that are really come under like the serious threat of death seem to be women. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's something in that that's interesting. There is something there, I think, and
I don't know, maybe. I do think that you're right that Valkyrie, despite the fact that she's now in this totally different position of power, she still hasn't kind of found peace within herself, and she is kind of still chasing this warrior's death, which is something that comes full circle at the end of the film. As a matter, not to skip ahead, but she, whereas she's quite ready to do it at the beginning of the film, she opts out of the last battle because she says, well, you know what, I'll probably just die, and that's not going to save the kids, so I'll stay here.
Yeah, and of course, only one female character does actually die, and find meaning through that,
right,
so to speak. So, but we'll get to that. Here's kind of interesting thing for me, and I'm sure for some of the older members of the audience, Christian Bale's decision to play, which very much came out in the scene when all the kids are kind of trapped in the shadow cage, voyaging to the shadow realm, and we see Heimdall's son, who now wants to be called Axel.
Yeah, there's a lot of Guns N' Roses like reference,
which is a very interesting for someone as kind of hip and cool as Taika Waititi seems to want to be. There's a very kind of I'm shocked at the amount of Guns N' Roses, because Guns N' Roses were always a band that were being pilloried for their political views and their views around women, and I think so
it's quite really likes
sure.
He
just really likes music, but
if you remember Ragnarok, all those big action sequences were set to kind of these sort of I want to say Led Zeppelin and stuff, but really kind of full on rock songs, big ballady, or not ballady, but you know what I mean, kind of bombastic 80s, rock songs,
hair band tunes,
well, in this film, but in the last one, there were possibly some more hair band.
Well, Guns N' Roses weren't a hair band, and to be, I do want to say, I'm a Guns N' Roses fan, and I spent a massive amount of my youth, and unfortunately some of my adulthood, listening to a lot of Guns N' Roses. So, and I do still like a lot of their music, and But yes, they were a troubling band politically in some cases, and it was very interesting that they chose to use that band for, you know, and I must admit there was a sneering element of me that just kind of want to go, not as freaking right on as you think you are, eh? But hey, don't worry. But it like I still liked it, but it I think, okay, so part of the problem, then this does lead to one of the problems for me for the movie, is that it felt like suddenly start to felt like a very kind of marketed piece of filmmaking. You know, it felt a bit too you know, test marketed to the nth degree. I don't know. I think that, look, Ragnarok felt really fresh, and the humor felt organic, but here, like, I just felt like it was fucking, you know, insert funny line here, and then here, and then here, and then insert this guitar riff here, and yeah, we've got a scene. It's fine. And like,
okay, can we go back to talking about gore?
Yeah, go on, do it. You go where you want to go.
Okay,
you go where you want to go. Like, it's fine. I'm not trying to direct it.
It just feels like we're talking about the film as a whole.
Yeah,
a little more than I wanted to say more of that for the end. You know.
Yeah, no, and you're totally right, Liz. But I you know, I've only seen it today. I saw it this morning. I'm kind of very much film as a whole thing, and
right, sure. We were talking about, and I'm pretty sure I know what you were going to say. Because about Thor and what Christian Bale said he based sort of the look of the character on. Yeah.
Which is the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That's what it felt like to me.
Oh, okay.
Like, when I was watching it, it was just like, this is the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang, which I don't know if you've ever seen or know about.
And maybe he. I don't.
I don't know. Sorry, I'm not saying he based it on that. I'm just saying that when I saw that moment where they're in the cage and he appears behind them, which was nice and creepy. I listened to his voice, and which he does in kind of his own accent, which was not his own accent, but he does it in a British accent. It's very odd now that you hear Christian Bale do anything in a British accent. And it was just like, oh, this is the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Right. Maybe. I mean, and I haven't actually read a ton of like interviews with him on.
No. So what did he base it on?
But I know that, like, I read something like in passing that he based some of the look of it on the Aphex Twin "Come to Daddy" video, which is like one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen. In my life.
That stuff is incredibly creepy, and it's directed by a guy called Chris Cunningham, who does incredibly creepy stuff. And he also, for my money, directed the best music video of all time, which was the "All Is Full of Love" by Bjork, where she's a robot being built in a factory.
Yeah,
and she makes love to herself. Like, just, like that blew my mind. And yeah, but I felt that there was this kind of incredibly
shitty. You know, okay, all right, yeah. I mean,
but that's just me.
I've only seen it like one time, so
I'm old. I'd love to know if people like Paul Taylor agree, and you know, who would have seen the film and are of an age. I'm not saying they're old, but of an age to have seen it. Right. Go on, please continue.
Okay, let's get back on track. I mean, to be honest, we've gone on for pretty long at this point.
I've gone on pretty long.
Right. That's what I was thinking, but you know. But yeah, I guess, you know, yeah. We then have them kind of team up to try and rescue the children. The film becomes largely like a rescue mission.
Yeah.
For these kids at this point. And Thor's first thought is, let's go approach the gods in omnipotent city.
Yeah. Is it or
or
omnipotent? I thought it was omnipotent sea.
Maybe I don't know. I can't remember.
I might have misheard.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen it once too. Not all the details have coalesced, but there we find Russell Crowe as Zeus. In one of the high points of the film, which I just thought all of that was hilarious.
I mean that was fantastically done, very very funny.
Yeah.
But you had Russell Crowe doing the Cod Greek accent, which was a bit. Like, I was quite surprised at that. I thought.
I think it was just so funny. I think it was like, I think it's meant to be terrible, and it is. And just his whole look is hilarious when he steps down the steps and he has to lift his little skirt, and there's just a lot of I think they were just like having fun in that scene.
Absolutely. And. I don't know. Yeah, I quite like that. That's the kind of that was a fun section, but again, I felt just went on a bit too. It's like fucking hell. Come on, guys, get it moving. And that's what I had the problem with the film. It's like just structurally and tonally, it's just like you're shifting in all the wrong points, in the wrong places, and it's just like. That I have a real problem with tone and shift and pitch in films and pace, increasingly, especially in modern films, because it's just like it's all over the shop and quite frankly, I don't think people give a shit now, unfortunately, because it's just so inured into the modern filmmaking experience and modern film watching experience that no one gives a shit. So it's fine just to keep doing it. Go on, sorry.
Okay. How about the tone and shift of podcasts? I'm just curious.
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
These things are never. Hey, Liz, I've tried to get structure and tone into these podcasts before, and I've been told no. I can't remember who told me that.
Well, yeah. Geez,
Go on.
Right. Well, since. We're coming up on an hour already. Why don't we just go? Why don't we just hit the big broad strokes and
hit the points you want to hit? Because obviously I am interested in what you've got to say about it because
Okay. Well, yeah, but I guess why don't we just talk about the film overall? That seems to be what
Go for it. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's your podcast too. Come on.
All right.
Tell me what you want to tell me.
I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun watching it. It's I would agree actually that tonally, structurally, all that stuff. It is not. It lacks some of the magic that Ragnarok had because, as you say, Ragnarok was a real surprise. I think with the level of comedy and also just all the stuff that was wacky and left field about it. And I think that really worked in Ragnarok because this, there was structure to it. It did, it had a little bit more of an arc and a shape and, I really had a lot of fun watching it. There is a lot happening in it. They do kind of try and cram in a lot of different plot points, different ingredients that they try and tie up, and some of it works, some of it doesn't work as well. I think that the through line, about sort of not closing yourself off to love and all of that. I thought that came through really well. I really, I thought the stuff between him and Jane was very sweet, and the way it wrapped up was very surprising for me. I actually, I thought maybe, okay, so maybe this is the future, two Thors, and that is still a possibility, but The way they wrapped it up for this film, it was like, oh, okay, so we're kind of leave it at that. And what was most unexpected for me was Love, the little girl at the end, and I thought that was like a really kind of lovely note to leave it on.
So, I mean, a couple of things there. Like we get that big sequence on when they reach eternity, because the idea is that they go to this place called eternity, and whoever gets there first gets their wish granted.
Yeah.
Right.
And eternity actually is like a being, like it's like a entity, this cosmic entity.
It is canon from the comics, right? Yeah. There is So Gorr's rushing to get there first, but Thor gets there at more or less the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, well, couldn't you just shout, "Oh, I want Jane to live"? Like, just fucking anything there.
Oh, well, like,
can you have just
wow, but he's not really the one who got there, so I don't think that's how it works.
But the trouble I have with that thing, there were a couple of things in there. Like, I mean, first of all, I loved when we get into eternity and he makes all the children Thors, which I thought was great. It's just like, oh yeah, can't you share the magic? You kind of put that out there, and that was I quite like the idea of that. And also effectively, because in watching it, one of the things that I guess does affect the tone and pace is that it is kind of a kids movie. It isn't really, there are moments when they could have gone a bit cruder and a bit kind of more shifted into a more kind of adult arena, but they didn't. And it's just like, oh, it's a kids movie. I see what you're making. This is your kids movie, isn't it? This is your kind of callback to sort of
Hunt for the Window People or something like that. It's and I think it works on both levels. It's like, you've got your kind of adult story within your kids movie, and
but when they get into eternity, that the head of eternity or the portal that they go to starts to take on a very familiar shape, and I was like, fuck, this is going to be Galactus. Like, we're going to get Galactus. Which it's somehow we're going to get Galactus, and of course we don't get Galactus, and that drove me mad because I genuinely
like Eternity, the character looks kind of like Galactus, like the helmet is similar.
But I genuinely was like, this is it. We're gonna get this is gonna kick off this whole. This is what Phase 4 is going to be about. It isn't going to be Secret Wars. It's going to be this. And of course, you don't get that. You do get a guest appearance from the Celestials at the end of the God omnipotency scene, which I thought was quite amusing, where they're just like, as the goats zoom out the window. But I genuinely thought we were going to get something major for the MCU there.
Well, I really,
in bringing the daughter back, I felt that kind of completely undercut the entire. And it's just like, well, why didn't you just forget the whole killing gods thing and just try and get to eternity and wish for your daughter to
because he was corrupted,
back.
and the whole point of the film is that the sword corrupted him, and he's blinded by rage and driven by vengeance, and that's not a way to live your life. The
sure.
Point of the movie is choosing love over hate or over and closing yourself off.
One of the things that Rob Deb pointed out, he's done a review which should be up by the time this goes up. One of the things that Rob Deb pointed out was he went, like, where the fuck this God's been for the last 5 years? Like, couldn't it have been useful for any of those to have been contacted?
What gods? When
all that stuff? Well, the gods from omnipotency, like, wouldn't it have been useful for any of them to appear in, say, the last 5 years? Back when all that stuff was happening with Thanos.
But the whole point of that scene was that they don't want to get involved. They are not interested. Okay, that was the whole point. It's like that's what the movie is about.
Do you not think one of the other gods that we saw, like Thor, would have gone, oh, actually, wait a minute, there are all these other...
They don't care. Like,
fat
the whole
gods.
point, and Gorr's whole point was, like these gods just want to have orgies and like, you know, hang out in their gilded palaces, and they don't care about, you know, what their, you know, what their followers, you know, they let whole planets die and, you know,
Very
whole
true,
people's I mean, that's what the movie is about.
I get it. I'm not a freaking idiot. Like I watched the
well,
thing, and it's not like the movie's subtle enough to hide any of those points. But you know, I just.
And a lot of that is like, you know, can be parallels to like classism and stuff like that.
Yeah,
where
sure. Okay.
You know, the rich live up in their towers and don't care what happens to the poor, you know, etc.
Yeah, very true. I just like the ending was interesting.
I loved the ending. I thought that like that was really unexpected. The little girl coming, you know, by that point in the film, I really wasn't expecting that to happen at all. So it was like a nice, you know, and it worked really well thematically.
I mean, I've got to say, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming. I don't know why. I didn't see it coming,
I kind of did when they reached an eternity. It was like, oh yeah, I know what we're going to get.
Right.
And he's going to choose this thing over the other thing, and you know it's going to be the kid, because he did talk. He did talk briefly about being a parent. You know, and that's kind of one of the things. Yeah,
they reiterate it enough times throughout the film that it like makes perfect sense. And because I did actually find myself being really moved by that opening scene where he loses her. You know, I thought it was like really nice development. I had no idea that it was going to be like, okay, well now Thor is going to raise this kid, and that's going to be his little sidekick.
And of course, the kid has seems to have the power of eternity, because
the kid is what she looks like to me is there's a character called the Singularity, who first appeared in the A-Force comics like not very long ago, and she looks just like that.
Right.
And like she I can't remember, her powers are kind of weird. Like I think she like contains like a universe within herself. So it's like in a way it actually is very similar to Eternity, the character. So
isn't that also similar to the power that Franklin Richards has now? Like, isn't he some sort of super mutant?
Oh, I don't know.
Omega
I'm not
level.
caught up, like with like the
I think he like
Fantastic Four, but but anyway, that's I'm pretty sure that's what they were going for, was this character called the Singularity. But that, you know, I don't know. Like it could just be that she's now got the power of eternity as well. But she's clearly, you know, come back with powers.
Yeah. And of course he's starting out by teaching. I like that thing where it's almost like, oh, it's her first day at school. But it isn't.
Right.
It's her first day learning to be
like a normal
Thor.
Kid. Yeah. And she, you know, like I love how she just like, you know, like burns a hole through the frying pan with her eyes, like when she you know, she doesn't want to eat the pancakes. And so like here's a little Easter egg for you,
please.
The little girl, you know, who plays Love, which is what she ends up being called, is Chris Hemsworth's actual daughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought that because
I didn't realize that at first, but like,
her accent slips into Australian as she's talking to her, which I loved. And also, I think that all their kids, like Christian Bale's kids, are in the film as well. I've got a feeling, like amongst the Asgardian kids. I think
Natalie Portman's too.
Because they're all there's a thing where they don't credit them, but if you go down to the end of the credits, there's a special thanks to, and they list off all these kids, and it's just like, you know, with familiar surnames,
right?
So we've got to talk about the two stingers as well.
Yeah.
So can we talk about the last stinger first?
Okay.
Because I feel that's the least kind of one, you know.
Sure.
Which is Jane Foster gets into Valhalla.
Yeah.
And she meets
died a warrior's death.
Yeah. Which was nice. But I felt was just to kind of give a wrap up moment to that character.
It's a wrap up moment that also leaves the door open for like her to possibly come back. Like, you know, because when the film ended on the note it did, I was like, oh, you know, that's really kind of sad. Like, I guess that's it. I guess, you know, we're just not going to see her again. Whereas I think leaving her in Valhalla, you know, it opens up a possibility that, like, yeah, she could come back. Even though that is the Asgardian afterlife, like, you know, there, you know, that hasn't always been the end of characters who wind up there. So,
and you know, the other stinger is, which I kind of felt was equally kind of is of course Zeus now kind of annoyed that people
Thor
don't fear the gods anymore. Yeah, Thor took his lightning bolt and doesn't return it, which is a bit, you know. So he summons Hercules to kind of go and make, you know, destroy the superheroes almost. Like he's kind of thing. It's destroy. Which I don't know whether or not that's going to be the thing for the Marvel Universe, but it's not necessarily what I want.
Right. Well, you know, it's at the very least, it seems like, you know, this is a character who could pop up in the next Thor film if they decide to do another Thor film, which I hope they do. I would happily watch Chris Hemsworth like play Thor for, you know, the rest of the time.
And we do get the thing at the end. It says Thor will return.
Yeah. So Thor versus Hulk, like Hercules, you know, is like, you know, that's an interesting direction to take it. You know, they've definitely gone there in the comics. That works for me, you know. So I got a kick out of that. I thought that was like, oh, okay, here's a character we haven't seen yet. Like, they keep on introducing them, and it's like, you know, it's just the Marvel Universe keeps getting bigger and bigger. And
so I was expecting something bigger. I was expecting either a kind of a definite, genuine hint. I mean, maybe that was it, of where we're going to be going for this phase. Or I mean, you could still have Hercules kicking off Secret Wars. You could still have him somehow be the instrument that spirits all these guys away, and, you know, because he is a god and he is a super powerful god, and he's got Zeus backing him up and all these other gods. Or, like, you know, I mean, there is a headcanon way that I hoped the film would go in retrospect.
Which was
I would have wanted Jane to die earlier in the film. And I actually would have wanted the film, instead of the quest for all these kids, I would have wanted the film to be a quest for Thor to bring Jane back. You know, to go on this quest to try and bring Jane back, and to almost kind of make Thor the antagonist and Gore the protagonist. And you could have still had them trying to get to eternity.
I just feel like that kind of turns Jane into the damsel in distress again.
Yes and no. But
you know, what they tried to change about her role here.
Well, I know, but if she chooses to die, as she does in the film anyway, then that doesn't. And I feel that then the ending could have been having to choose between Thor chooses between, I can bring Jane back or I can bring the kid back, but I can't do both. Or alternatively, kill Thor, have Jane go after Thor. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted a kind of, I mean, I guess I wanted What Dreams Will Come. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but
No.
but you know, I never. Sometimes you do always want something different from what you get. Sometimes you get exactly what you want. I don't know. I just felt the film was very kind of thrown together in a way
I think there is like a 4-hour cut of it or something like that.
I maybe would have rather have watched that. But I just felt like at some point someone came in and went, you know what you're doing is great, but can we just do all this? Can you just do it quicker? Oh, you want it, but we've got this nicely paced thing, and it's just yeah, but I just want it quicker. yeah, but we've got this really nicely paced thing, and everything kind of flows together really nicely, and da. Yeah, but I want all that, but I just want it faster, and that I feel may have happened at some stage. Not exactly that, but like I just feel like that's kind of the.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's the most perfectly structured movie. Did that bother me too much? Not really. I mean, no. I don't think it. I don't think it's the best Thor movie, but I definitely think that it was like a really enjoyable Thor movie.
Okay.
It's I felt like what I liked most about it was some of this basically like Jane's story, kind of her character felt so underserviced in the previous films, and getting to see her actually be given, be like, a fully realized, empowered sort of, character. As so many of the kind of like, women in the early phase of, like those phase 1 films were just romantic leads. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, this, it was really cool. And it actually made me really recall selling those comics. Particularly, there's like that moment where she says, "Yeah, I'm not Lady Thor, I'm Mighty Thor," and like, I do remember so many guys picking up that book saying, "Oh yeah, Lady Thor." It's like, well, no, it's just Thor.
It's exactly what was the thing.
So on the nose and everything, and it was just cool to see Natalie Portman actually get to do that role. Like,
totally.
So it's just a lot of it was like my fantasies of like, those comics that I really loved, being realized on screen, and just the joy of watching Chris Hemsworth be Thor. Like,
see, I actually felt
like I'm willing to forgive a lot just to watch him.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. I'm sure a lot of fans are. I'm not going to speak to the reasons for that. There's because there's a lot.
No, I mean, I'm like a Loki girl in that way. Like, I'm not just watching his biceps or anything. I just think he's hilarious.
But there's a lot of films I'll watch just because certain actresses are in them. It's just like, this is terrible, right. But I'll go and watch it because it's got that actress in it. But like, I mean, I felt that this kind of film actually became more of the things that I actually find annoying about Taika Waititi.
Okay, well, are we doing kind of final thoughts now? Because I think we should do final thoughts.
This is my. Okay. Believe me, I'm not going anywhere after this. But I just felt, oh god, this is actually annoying hipsterism now. This is annoying quirk. This is you just spouting off funny lines, and it's the type of person who, if you were in a pub, eventually you would get up and punch. And I just found it's just like, yeah, go on, keep it going, because there's no. I just felt what you're doing is you're just kind of shearing away a lot of the substance by not taking the time. And it's just like, yeah, it's all funny, it's all entertaining, but actually you need to take a breath. And I'm not a person that often says the movie needs to be longer, but that movie needed to be longer. And
I don't think it did. I think they could have. I agree that they could have dispensed with a lot of the jokes and used. It didn't need to be a longer movie. They could have just like put. I would agree, a little bit more like emotional weight behind some scenes. Take a breath from the comedy a few times more often.
And again,
that would be, that it would be a more balanced film for that. But I mean, I did laugh a lot.
Yeah, me too. And again, Taika Waititi is very talented, and I'm just being a bit glib and a bit kind of dickish when I say he's the type of person that I would get up and punch. But it is just like, yeah, I think that you're just kind of being an annoying giggler now in the way that you're sitting there kind of laughing at your own jokes, and it's just like, yeah, this is great, but you need to kind of. There's somewhere where you need to find a bit of substance in yourself, and a bit of substance in this, and it's just not there.
I think it was there. I just don't think it was there often enough.
Okay, that's fine. Incidentally, in this film, I did have to tell 2 children to shut up because
you're such a curmudgeon. I mean, I would have been furious.
They were the only other 2 people in the goddamn cinema.
I would have been absolutely
and it was early in the morning, but they were the only other 2 people. It's like, Jesus Christ, couldn't you have waited half an hour and gone to see the one after me? But they were the only other. I did feel bad for doing it, but they were talking throughout the beginning of the film. Yeah, like I don't know if one of them was explaining, and they were kids. They were like teenagers,
right?
Or very young teenagers. So I did feel bad about doing it, but I just went, "Can you be quiet, please?" First once, and then they kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And like half an hour of the movie had gone by, and I just went, "Shut up." I felt so bad.
I mean,
I am a curmudgeon.
You shouldn't feel that bad, though.
I do feel a bit bad.
So
if you were the kids in that screening, I am sorry.
But yeah,
kids.
I mean, don't talk in a movie theater. Just don't.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I have been a bit of a curmudgeon about this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Liz, that I didn't enjoy it more.
Well, you don't have to be sorry that you didn't enjoy it more. I mean, if that's how you felt, that's, I understand that there are things that you could pick apart.
Liz, would you like, and I mean this from my heart, sincerely, would you like to do a Patreon special on this so you can say all the things you want to say about the movie and uninterrupted?
No, that's all right.
You could just fangirl for an hour.
I'll be doing that 24/7 at the shop anyway
You do let me know what your colleagues have felt about it.
I will. I have a lot of nice things to say about it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm sorry that my enthusiasm doesn't match yours again. We are fabulously out of sync on nearly all these movies.
Right, right. I think it's fair. You have your, and I don't think you're alone. I did kind of I didn't sort of go read a ton of reviews, but just kind of at a glance, it seems like, there's more of a mixed response to it. So,
I think Rob's response, I'm yet to read his review, but I'm curious. He did, just quickly, Rob was going to come and do this podcast with us, but we couldn't make it work time-wise. He did send me a quick message, which is fantastically Rob. So, I know Hercules. He lives in South London, round the back of my Sainsbury's near Balham.
Okay.
Which
I take it he means the actor, or
no, the god. Yeah. So on that note, I think we're going to leave it. You can follow us at all usual places. I can't be bothered to do that tonight, but you can see him on the screen. Check out Lizzie's website, and do follow her on Twitter for lots of warm discussion about comics. Thor. And Thor, especially. But we'll catch you next time on The Crush. Thank you for watching and listening. It's been a pleasure as always. I'm gonna let's call it. It's done. We're done. I need a whiz, quite frankly.
All right, classy way to end it. Let's.
Hey, Liz, I'm all about the class. I'm all about the class.
All right. Well, you go.
Goodbye.
Bye.